Blog Talk Radio.
Thanks for tuning in to Fire Engineering Talk Radio. Each week, our host will introduce you to a various cast of characters you will only find here. Each host will share experience, knowledge, and expertise regarding their years in the fire service, allowing you to call in and speak with them live, an experience you can only find on Fire Engineering Talk Radio. So thanks for joining us. Enjoy and stay safe.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Fire Engineering Talk Radio and another installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I am Tom Merrill, your host, and I'm glad to have you here with us this evening. You know, this is, again, the show for the volunteer fire service, and it's for all those who support the premise that being considered a professional firefighter has absolutely nothing to do with earning a paycheck. It has everything to do with delivering competent and compassionate service, training hard to be as prepared as possible. No matter what role you play in your volunteer department, you train and prepare for whatever that role might require. And it also involves taking care of not just your customers and the public, but your own members as well. And all of us as volunteer firefighters should always strive to be a professional firefighter. All of us should strive to wear the badge of professional firefighter. You know, I've been out quite a bit the last few months meeting with some great people while I share my presentation amply titled The Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I just got back Sunday. I was down in Virginia at the Virginia Fire Rescue Conference. What an incredible 4 days there. Great people, a great setting, a great venue, very well organized, well run, led by my new friend Nick Caputo. He had a fantastic staff. They were so professional. And I met some of the just greatest people ever. And a couple of weeks before that, I was in the Long Island area, met with some great volunteer firefighters throughout Suffolk County. I even spent Super Bowl Sunday at the Center Reach Fire Department in Long Island in the Ronkonkoma area. And I know I said that wrong, Ronkonkoma, I think that's how they say it. Give me some credit. I'm getting better at saying that. Did a presentation at the Mastic Fire Department headquarters, ironically enough, while they were out fighting a structure fire. I did my presentation there, and the firefighters from Center Reach had me to one of their firehouses to watch the Super Bowl, which was an incredible time. But at all of these venues, at all of these events, I continue to meet the most incredible and passionate volunteer firefighters. There's so many out there who share not just this love of the fire service, but concern for the fire service as well, to keep our volunteer fire departments operating in a professional manner and to keep going on in a strong manner as well. And I'll be out again a couple weeks. I'm going to Orange County, New York to deliver it, and after that, heck, it's almost April, and you know what that means, FDIC 2017, right around the corner, April 24th to the 29th in Indianapolis. And you've heard all of the fire engineering hosts talking about it. It is definitely the premier firefighting conference in the world. If you can only attend one, that's the one you should be at, with 33,000 of your brother and sister firefighters. And I hope you can make it. And if you are fortunate enough to be going, I'd love to see you and have you come to my class, which will be Monday, April 24th from 1:30 to 5:30. And hopefully I'll see you there and many other professional volunteer firefighters as well. You know, last year my department was assigned a producer and a videographer, David, to follow us around for the internet reality show called The Battalion TV. I don't know if you're familiar with that. If not, go online, check it out, Google it, The Battalion TV. It's quite a series. It's a video series that features not just my department, but many others across the land, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, paid and volunteer. And these videographers go around and record the actions of what's going on with these fire departments, downtime, training, actually going on calls with them as well. David followed us around last year at FDIC and filmed the FDIC experience, and he's going to be back following us around this year for our FDIC experience. Well, he was in our firehouse, spent a week with us, just left a couple weeks ago. He was with us for the week, and he was out recording us and showing us out on some calls and doing some training, and even in our downtime in our firehouse. And if you get a chance, feel free to check that out and go online and check out the Battalion TV, reality-based fire series, right online, featuring departments from all over the United States, and he picked ours as well. Fire Engineering sent him over to us, and we were happy to accommodate him. And he's recording the actions of our department, the Snyder Fire Department, outside Buffalo, and just one of the almost 30,000 volunteer fire departments out there, and followed us around for about a week, and also at FDIC. So if you get a chance, check that out, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And so you've heard me say before when I am doing my series, both out in the public and also online here, that one part of being professional is being prepared for the job that awaits, being prepared competently, having the skills and training necessary to operate hose lines, to search, to don and doff our SCBA and our gear, to perform EMS. But it also means we have to be prepared in other ways, such as physically as well. We cannot and we should never use the line, "I am just a volunteer," as an excuse for poor performance or not behaving appropriately. And considering the fact that over 50% of the line of duty deaths continues to be related to stress and sudden cardiac events, we have to do all we can to make ourselves better prepared physically as well to do the job. Yes, even as a volunteer, it is still a job. And being fit for duty is the most basic requirement for every firefighter, both career and volunteer. You know, it's so obvious to say this, but yes, you're going to benefit greatly, and your family's going to benefit if you're taking better care of yourself. But so will the public that we serve. And you know what? So will your brother and sister firefighters as well. And my two guests here tonight, they're going to help stress the importance of fire department health and wellness programs, as well as outline ways firefighters can improve their overall fitness. And you'll find out the answer doesn't have to be expensive gym memberships or pricey exercise equipment either. There's some very simple things we can be doing to make ourselves more physically fit, better prepared to do the job. There's a lot of different parts to the pie for being prepared. This is one of them, and it's an important one. And, oh, yeah, it's an important one that doesn't just benefit you. As I said, it benefits your family, your brother and sister firefighter, and the community that you serve. And we all want to provide good service to our communities. Now, if you would like to call in and talk about this, or if you have anything else on your mind about the Volunteer Fire Service, please, again, the number is there for you to call in. It's 760-454-8852. We would love to hear from you. But, again, I have two great guests tonight that are going to talk to us about this. I have Dan Kerrigan, who's a chief officer, a deputy fire marshal from the East Whiteland Fire Department in Pennsylvania. He's a 30-year fire service veteran. He's a certified peer fitness trainer. He's a passionate advocate for firefighter health and fitness. And along with him, I have Jim Moss, who's also a certified personal trainer, also a frontline firefighter, for he is a career lieutenant and an EMS training officer with the Metro West Fire Protection District in the St. Louis, Missouri area. And they're expecting some weather tonight, so hopefully we'll keep him with us. But both Dan and Jim are the co-authors of a book titled Firefighter Functional Fitness, the Essential Guide to Optimal Firefighter Performance and Longevity. And again, if you'd like to call in and talk to them, the number 1-760-454-8852. But Dan, Jim, are you with me?
We're here.
Dan is with you.
Excellent.
We're here.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much to both of you for being here. It's certainly an honor to have you on the show to help discuss and also to stress, and no pun intended there with the word stress, the importance of this topic of physical fitness in our professional fire service. Now, before we get into the book and all of your great ideas, Jim, if I could start with you, why don't you just give us a little background on yourself and how you got into firefighting and maybe how you developed this passion for physical fitness, and then how you met Dan. And then, Dan, you tell us the same thing about you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us on to talk about firefighter fitness. You know, it's something that we're very, very passionate about. And one of the running jokes that we like to give is that, you know, firefighters will always debate, you know, fire tactics and all that stuff. That seems to be the hot topic within the last, 5 years or so. But, you know, we always joke around, you can't debate fitness. You know, every firefighter has to be fit, and there's no argument against fitness. And if you got a body, you can work out. And so we always like to say we can always talk about fitness because no one's going to argue against it. So a little bit more about me. I am a career lieutenant for the Metro West Fire Protection District. And I got into firefighting simply because it's something that sparked my interest as I was going through college. I was going to be a high school Spanish teacher, believe it or not. And I decided not to go that path, and I ended up getting my EMT license, going through school for that. Started working as an EMT for St. Louis City Fire Department, then became a paramedic, and eventually went to the St. Louis County Fire Academy here in St. Louis. And the rest is history. I've been a firefighter for 10 years now, EMT and paramedic for 13 years. And as for fitness, it's something I've always been interested in. But as I became more interested in the firefighting profession and I wanted to become a firefighter, I started to adapt my fitness and make it functional for the job of firefighting. I remember I was specifically preparing for the physical agility test at the St. Louis Fire Department, and I was on the step mill, every other day with 50 pounds in my backpack. You know, I didn't have money for a weight vest, and the gym I was going to didn't have a weight vest. So I just put 50 pounds in a backpack, and I would spend, 15 minutes on a step mill or a little stair stepper, and that's how I would practice, getting my legs, getting my lungs, and my cardio in gear. And then ever since then, I've taken fitness very seriously because, as you mentioned before, that quote from our book, we believe that fitness is the most fundamental, it's the most basic requirement for every firefighter, whether you're a career or volunteer. The physical duties, the physical tasks of firefighting is the same whether you're career or volunteer. And as you said, we want to perform to the utmost capacity that we can for our public, for our families, for our brothers and sisters who are on the front lines with us.
Yep, absolutely. I think you said it best, and you've heard it before. The fire doesn't treat volunteers any different than it does paid, or treat paid any different than it does volunteer, and or any of the jobs we do. So
exactly.
You're right. That's definitely right. And Dan, how about you, my friend?
Well, thanks again. I want to thank you as well. It's our honor to be on the show, Tom. Actually, it's much appreciated, and we love to talk fitness. We could probably do it for hours if you let us. But I guess a little bit about me. Yeah, I mean, I've got those 30 years in, and although I am a career fire officer, I have maintained a volunteer status throughout the vast majority of my career and started out as a volunteer myself. So I think I'm pretty well accustomed and attuned to the trials and tribulations of the volunteer fire service. I stay connected with it. And, it's a proud service, and certainly, is made up of, the country's made up mostly of volunteer firefighters as it is. So it's an important issue that we talk about, and it definitely goes for both sides of the fence, the career and the volunteer personnel. So, I tell you, I was one of those guys when I was younger that just had that attitude that, I'm young and I'm in shape, and I was able to keep up, and I was lucky to come up in an era, so to speak, that we were busy. We got a good fire activity, and we stayed pretty busy, and a lot of work, and so it didn't really bother me that much back when I was younger in terms of being fit for duty, because I just assumed I was, like probably a lot of younger guys do. But as I got older, I found that as the fire activity remained constant, at least in my area, and my brain stayed young, like most people's brains do, but my body got older. And I started to realize pretty quickly that I wasn't able to keep up as much as I could. And I certainly, not only on the fire ground, wasn't able to keep up as much, but I definitely noticed that I was not recovering nearly as quickly from fires as I used to. So that, along with some research that I was doing at the National Fire Academy at the time, that opened my eyes very widely to what we like to call the cardiovascular epidemic in the fire service, and some issues at the time that I was dealing with my own department and some folks in my own department, and our lack of a fitness program really all came together and sort of blossomed into this passion that, I don't understand why nobody's doing anything about it. And I shouldn't say nobody's doing anything about it, but I don't understand why we're having such an issue where we're dying because of things we can control a lot more so than we're dying because buildings are falling on us or we're burning up in fires. And that's just the candid statement that I'll make about it. And so,
absolutely.
Here we are tonight. Yeah, right. Here we are tonight, and we're talking about it. We're trying to get the word out every way we can, and trying not to just preach about it, but we're trying to give people practical, common sense tools and simplify things for the firefighter, whether you're career or volunteer, to help you to get in better shape and stay that way. And there's a lot of components to it I'm sure we'll talk about. But, every day is the passion grows, and it's a pleasure to work with Jim and with the other folks that we collaborate with. And I just our motto or basically our mission is to create a healthier fire service one firefighter at a time. And that's what we're going to do.
And, I think it's no secret, and I think I mentioned it earlier, that, over 50% of firefighter fatalities continues to be due to stress or overexertion. So, it is very real. And I think I read this stat once, and perhaps you guys can verify this. I saw it written somewhere that firefighters are 300% more likely to suffer a heart attack than any other, and here's the key word because of my show, profession. So I think step one here is, folks listening, this is very, very real. And what happens, I think, in our volunteer firehouses, there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of camaraderie like there is in all firehouses. And I just think sometimes the recognition isn't there that, this is also a job that is very strenuous. Those tones can drop at any second. You're going from 0 to 100 in no time flat. You're going from the sound sleep to, out in the middle of the night, and you're just putting such pressure on your body that step one to me is to recognize that and say, hey, I want to take care of myself, not just for myself, but for my family, as I mentioned, and other firefighters. So we've got to get our members to embrace that,
Exactly. And when we, sorry, if you want to go ahead, Dan?
No, go ahead. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Tom, one of the reasons what you're talking about, that statistic of 50% of line of duty deaths every single year, that has been unchanged for decades and decades and decades. And it seems like, this should be the topic that everybody should be talking about all the time of how to lessen that number, lessen that percentage. And what people don't realize is that for those every, let's say there's 80 to 100 firefighter line of duty deaths every year, right? So half of those line of duty deaths are due to heart attack and stroke. We all know that. What a lot of people don't know is that there is a 25-to-1 ratio of serious cardiac events for firefighters. And that means that there's firefighters, for every one line of duty death for firefighters, there's 25 very serious and life-altering events that are cardiac-related that firefighters suffer while performing their line of duty duties, I should say. And so
they may not pass away, but they're suffering a heart attack or something like that.
And it's going to alter their life. They may have decreased cardiac function, or if they had a stroke, they may have decreased mobility or cognition or what have you. So think about that. That's 800 to 1,000 firefighters in the U.S. every single year that are affected by cardiac events, and that's just astounding. And so that's why we dedicated a whole chapter in our book about this cardiovascular epidemic that the U.S. Fire Service is facing. And, it's not just volunteer firefighters, not just career firefighters. It's all firefighters. And so it's kind of scary. We like to give the quote that, if you knew that before becoming a firefighter, before becoming whether a career or volunteer, if you knew that your longevity, that your life expectancy was automatically going to decrease from all the hazards that we face, would you still do it? And, 98% say yes. And then some take a step back and say, wait, what are all these hazards? What did I get myself into? And people don't realize, and a lot of firefighters don't realize that, we're usually it's a lot of guys, right? Fire service is probably 95% men. And so when you get a bunch of men together, what happens, right? We just kind of, I would say, we give into our, what's easy and what we like to do, just hanging out if we can. We don't take the best care of ourselves nutrition-wise. Maybe we don't work out. I think a lot of that's changing. But, most of all, our nutrition really suffers when we all get together and we don't take really, really good care of ourselves. But what I'm saying is that there are so many other factors that firefighters face when we're actually out fighting fire, like our sympathetic nervous system that, increases the amount of epinephrine and cortisol and the havoc that wreaks on our body. There's the actual physical work that wreaks havoc on our physiological system. Just from the environmental and the heat stress that we face, a firefighter's core temperature can go up to almost 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and that places us at greater cardiac stress. And then there's also dehydration that we face on the fire ground, and that also puts us at an increased risk for a heart attack as well. And that's why firefighter rehabilitation is so important for all firefighters.
Jim, it's hard enough recruiting volunteers. I think you just scared them all away.
No.
Well,
no, it's still the greatest job in the world, right?
You know what? I mean, Tom, I would tell you, think about it. When you're engaged in strenuous firefighting activity, this is a shocker to a lot of people because, we talk about high-intensity interval training as part of what we do to increase our cardiovascular capacity. But there are studies out there by my good friend Dr. Denise Smith and others that have proven that strenuous firefighting will run your heart rate up over 200 beats a minute at times. And that's very difficult, if not impossible, to even duplicate in strenuous, exercise. So
right.
When you're talking
absolutely.
about taking your heart, you cannot imagine the stress that you're putting on your heart and your other body systems. The stress of firefighting, it affects every single body system that we have. And so we want to dispel a rumor or a myth as well when we talk about this, because sometimes you'll hear people say, well, what do you mean firefighting causes heart attacks? Well, the act of firefighting does not necessarily cause a heart attack, but what firefighting does is a trigger. It's an immediate trigger for a sudden cardiac event because it takes all those factors that Jim's been talking about and wraps them up all in a ball and pushes you over that edge very quickly. So if you're not prepared for that kind of strenuous activity, you're asking for trouble. Is really what it comes down to.
Right, no doubt about it. And so I think in our firehouses, we need to do a good job of making our people aware of this, and I think we are.
Mm-hmm.
But now, as Jim said, we a lot of times get together and we fall back on our fun and games and not always doing what's best for us. So now we got to motivate our people. And one of the things I like to say, and this is just my spiel on it, but I'd like to talk to you about ways to motivate our coworkers or in our volunteer firehouses, our friends and other members, how to maybe start doing some physical fitness. And one thing I said is, in the volunteer in the fire service in general, we do so much together. If I'm going to put a roof on my house, I'm going to have a bunch of firefighters come help me. If I need advice on what tool to buy, firefighters are going to tell me what tool to buy. So why don't we apply this to the physical fitness as well and start off by walking together or get a group to, hey, there's a 5K coming up in a few months. Let's start exercising for that, or just start working together. It doesn't have to be, Ironman competitions or anything like that. So
no.
You guys, in your book, does it talk about just motivating people to start doing it? I mean, yeah, you should be motivated enough because you could die from a heart attack, and we know why.
Right. Well, I think that, our book dedicates a chapter to what we call our three cornerstones of firefighter functional fitness, and that's quite simply, that's attitude, accountability, and action. And it's all personal. So before we even get into tips and ways to actually go through the actual physicality of exercising, we have to take a step back and we have to look at ourselves and go back to that central theory that this needs to be viewed as a requirement of the job, regardless of your status. So your own personal attitude about your health and fitness is key. If you do not have the right attitude and you do not portray the right attitude to your fellow firefighters, then we're going to have a much bigger hill to climb before we can get to that point where we go for that walk or we get on the treadmill or whatever we decide to do. So our own personal attitude is absolutely a cornerstone of success, right? So having the right attitude that firefighter fitness is a requirement of the job is number one. Number two, your own personal accountability. And that really comes down to you just owning every decision that you make. And Lisa, that's the way we see it. And I've said before, and I say it a lot, that if you decide not to do something, you're still making that decision, are you not? So your own
Correct,
personal
yeah.
accountability says a lot about you. All right. And where we all want to take this is we want to move it to action. So we can all talk all day about how important we think it is. And I think this is a general failure, at least historically in the fire service, is that, as Jim said, we can all agree that it's a very important issue and it's a serious issue. But how many of us on a personal, on an organizational level, either or both, have actually taken that intellectual agreement and moved to action? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach people how to take what we know to be true and move it to action and actually start doing something, starting small, taking some steps to better ourselves in terms of our health and fitness. And that's where things like you mentioned, Tom, group workouts, positive peer pressure comes in, little challenges here and there. We call them, we need champions of firefighter fitness in every firehouse, that one or two people that are going to show up and they're going to just lead by example. And the other folks are going to watch them and they're going to see what they're doing. They're going to ask questions and hopefully they're going to get involved. So it's not any one thing that we can do. There's several things that we can do, but it all starts with those 3 A's. It starts with those 3 A's and we work up from there.
And who should lead by example for sure, and it's just like in everything else. Yeah, the leaders, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so important that we walk the talk. And I think I try to do it. I know you try to do it. I think we're making headway, and we're getting those chief officers out there to realize that you can't just cast down orders from on high and say you will be in shape or you will go do this or you will go exercise while you sit in your office and not participate with the firefighters. When I was a firefighter, I loved it when the chiefs came down and got involved with us and got hands-on and everything. And I think that's what we have to do. Not everybody has to do it at the same level, but you have to demonstrate it. You have to do it to the best of your ability to whatever your conditioning level is, but you got to do something. And I think once you do that as a chief, you inspire the firefighters and the company officers to do the same. And I would just add that the company officers, I put a lot of weight on them anyway. My feeling is that whether you're career or volunteer, those company officers ought to be coming in the station on almost a daily basis saying to themselves and to others, what am I going to do to improve the health and fitness of my crew today? Okay, they're the key, because they talk it up and they talk it down, and they're the ones that have to, I think, take a big part of the responsibility and lead by example as well.
Yeah, and I was going to get to this in a little bit, but I'll bring it up now. We can talk about it more later. But along with that, recognizing that volunteer firefighters lead crazy busy lives trying to balance everything, there's no reason that on a drill or training night you can't work physical fitness into what you're drilling and training on. And I like what Chief Alton said on the Hump Day Hangout with you guys last week about we used to don't call it working out, call it training. So I kind of like that.
Exactly.
Get your physical fitness in on the drill ground.
You can work right into any drill you're doing.
It comes down to planning.
Absolutely.
And I know you mentioned that article we wrote earlier, and the very first tip that we like to tell people regardless, and it definitely it obviously impacts the volunteer because, as you said, the crazy schedules is you have to plan and schedule when you're going to work out. You have to make a commitment, whether it's 3 days, 4 days, whatever the commitment is that you make to yourself, you've got to make it and you've got to stick to it, right? And you have to be realistic about it and you know, understand what time constraints you might have, but you've got to make that commitment. As you plan and schedule your workouts, you'll find over time that it becomes more part of your quote-unquote routine. And you know, our book, we give many examples of how to structure workouts in 3-day a week, 4-day a week, 5-day a week, 6-day a week regimens on different, you know, different physical conditioning levels and so forth. So that's probably the number one tip we could give anybody, especially volunteers. Jim, you might want to add to that, but I think planning and scheduling is a key component right there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I just want to reiterate, you know, it all, above all, it starts with the decision that you're going to change. You want to change. And as Dan said, that physical fitness is just something, it's a lifestyle. You don't have to be perfect about it. And we always like to say it's a journey. It's not a destination. It's not saying that, okay, once I can do, you know, 50 push-ups in a minute, I'm done. I don't have to work out anymore. It's a continual process of making yourself better. And the more you do it, really, the easier it becomes. As it becomes more and more habitual, it becomes part of your lifestyle. And one of the quotes that I've always, that Dan has said before, he wrote it in a great article, which I believe is on Fire Engineering's in their blog network under his profile, is that he said before, fitness is a personal choice, but it has professional implications. So it doesn't only affect you, it affects everyone around you. You know, and if you think about it, it affects the longevity of your career, the time that you can serve with your department. It affects your family and how well you can provide for them, how long you're going to be around for them. And what a lot of firefighters don't realize is, you know, cancer is an extremely hot topic within the fire service. And we talk about, you know, wearing our air and cleaning our gear and making sure we're not traveling around with contaminated, dirty gear in our vehicles or bringing it inside of our houses, you know. And those are all very great, you know, they're awesome tips. And we need to put them into action and adhere to them. But what a lot of firefighters don't realize is that your physical fitness, your physical condition, as well as your nutrition, the foods you eat, play a huge role in your cancer risks. So, you know, as I research more and more, it just becomes more and more eye-opening that, you know, it's not just, you know, the smoke or the chemicals that we breathe in. It's so much more than that. You know, it's our physical fitness and our nutrition as well.
Wow, that's scary because, well, first of all, I live in Buffalo, so you know what that is, land of pizza and wings. we actually brought a physical, well, two things we did in my department, which I'm very proud of. I think it's very proactive, is for one of our training drills, we actually brought in a nutritionist to help talk to us about the importance of making the right choices when it comes to food and things we can do not just in the firehouse but at home with our own families. That was very well received, and we actually now have a personal trainer coming into the firehouse a couple days a week, and there's quite a group of firefighters that get involved with the personal trainer, and they fire each other up, and they have a Facebook page and everything to motivate each other to be there. And I thought that was just a great idea.
And I think what you're starting to see, and we preach this over and over, is that within fire departments, fitness has to be part of a culture change. Just like training, you know, if a fire department is lacking in their training, and whether it's hands-on or didactic training or whatever it is, you know, it has to become part of the culture. And where does culture change? It changes at the individual level. It's that individual choice to say, I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. And whether it's, you know, learning how to place a ladder better or advance a hose line better, or it's your physical fitness, it all comes back to that personal accountability and your willingness to actually take action to better yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we get our people to understand this. We hammer them over the head with all the statistics and all this information. So where do we begin? What is this functional fitness? It doesn't involve a big, expensive gym membership. It doesn't involve a lot of expensive equipment. What exactly is, for our listeners out there, what is functional fitness?
Dan, I'll let you tackle this. Tag, you're it.
Okay. You're okay. I'll be happy to tell you. It is exactly what you described in terms of exercising and executing movements to improve yourself that replicate what you do on the fire ground. So, quite simply, what we try to get people to understand is, as firefighters, we should be exercising functionally to improve our performance on the fire ground, as well as become more fit and hopefully create more longevity in not only our career but also our retirement. Because one of the key things here, let's not forget, is we want to be able to have that healthy career, whether it be volunteer or career. And when we're done, we want to actually be able to enjoy the rest of our lives as well. So Firefighter Functional Fitness is really about doing exercises and movements that fall into categories that we've developed that apply specifically to the job of firefighting, not the job of running marathons, not the job of being a football player or anything else. It's functional in terms of what we do on the fire ground. And what we do is we break that down into a concept we call the Big 8 of Firefighter Functional Fitness. Jim, you want to start with that?
Yeah. So before I get into the Big 8, Dan mentioned, whether it's a football player or a marathon runner or a gymnast, what do? They tailor their training specifically for the tasks that they want to perform for their sport. And if, a lot of times you have heard that firefighters are tactical athletes, and we completely believe that. We are tactical, we're operational, occupational athletes. And so once you get that into your head, you need to think about, okay, well, if I'm an athlete, how am I going to train for my sport? And Dan mentioned that we came up with a concept called the Big 8, and everything about it is geared towards functional fitness for firefighters. So there's 8 different categories. The first 3 are core strength, cardiovascular capacity, and flexibility. And the last 5 are functional strength movements that firefighters perform. That's pushing, pulling, lifting, carrying, and dragging. And one thing you might notice for anyone who does strength and conditioning and does it from a bodybuilding perspective, we don't have, chest, biceps, quads, calves, all these different muscle groups. We focus more so on the movements that firefighters perform, and then we replicate exercises and training and movements based around what firefighters are actually going to do on the fire ground. So we mentioned first core strength. We believe that core strength is the most fundamental part for firefighters in their fitness. Some firefighters have great upper body strength. Some may have a great lower body strength, but if they have a weak core, which is mainly their torso, front, back, side, top, and bottom, if they have a weak core, then their upper body strength is going to become compromised and their lower body strength is going to become compromised. And if they also have a weak core, they're going to compromise their back. And as we all know, back injuries, strains, and sprains are huge problems for firefighters. So much so that 50% of all line-of-duty deaths and retirements are due to back injuries, and that's a pretty scary statistic within itself. And then we move on to cardiovascular.
That's a stat I never knew existed. Wow.
Yeah, it's scary. Once you start researching all this stuff, it's just crazy. You kind of go down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland, and you keep on finding all these statistics, and it just opens your eyes to how important physical fitness is, and that's why we say it's the most basic, it's the most fundamental requirement for all firefighters. But going on, we talked about core strength, cardiovascular capacity. As Dan already mentioned, a firefighter's heart rate can climb up to 200 beats per minute or even above, and you're in all your turnout gear. That can weigh 50 to 70 pounds. You may be carrying tools around with you. You may be advancing hose lines or pulling ceiling, venting, whatever. you're doing all this in a cumbersome, heavy, heat-restrictive gear. And so that's why your heart rate can easily hit 200 beats per minute or even more than that. In your cardiovascular system, your heart is going into overdrive. So there's a lot of ways that we have firefighters replicate the demands of the fire ground within their cardiovascular capacity, and how efficiently, and how functional their cardiovascular system works. Next, we can talk about flexibility. If you talk to most firefighters, and most firefighters are men, like we said, 90 to 95% are men within the fire service, and statistically, men are less flexible than women. And the less flexibility we have, what happens? We're more prone to what? Strains and sprains.
Sprains and sprains, right? Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So that's why we put that in there as well. And we already mentioned the last 5, the functional strength areas: pushing, pulling, lifting, carrying, dragging. It's really tailoring our strength training to what we're going to do on the fire ground. And so we have pushing exercises that directly replicate fireground functions, like forcing a door. One of the things we always joke around about is, should firefighters do bench press? That seems to be like the typical guy exercise. You should just do bench press. And if you can't bench press so much weight, then, you're a loser. Well, we would rather have firefighters do freestanding movements that incorporate their core, their legs, instead of doing a supine bench press, because when are you actually ever going to do a supine bench press movement on the fire ground, especially with the tank on your back? Hopefully never,
right.
Never, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, do a movement that, whether you're standing, like you're forcing an inward swinging door, and you have to push the Halligan inward towards the door and force the door open. Do a standing pressing movement with your upper body while your core is engaged and your legs are engaged, and you're stabilizing yourself. So those are the kind of things that we like firefighters to think about when they're performing strength-based functional movements for strength training.
And
well,
first of all, I just want to remind our listeners that they're listening to Fire Engineering Talk Radio and tonight's installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. And glad to have everybody listening in tonight. And just as a reminder, my guests are Dan Kerrigan, Jim Moss, authors of the Firefighter Functional Fitness, which is a fantastic resource to help firefighters understand the methods for fitness training. It incorporates real-life activities that can help best prepare them for actual fireground performance, and it's just some fantastic information. And, one of the things that comes up from time to time is sometimes people get intimidated when they start training or working out because it's been a while since they've done it. They don't want to embarrass themselves, and this can even apply to like a senior member of the department that maybe is pretty respected because he maybe was a chief at one time or was looked at as, a pretty good, solid firefighter, but father time snuck up on him, and he doesn't want to embarrass himself. So I think we have to remember, too, right, that when we do this, that when we're with each other, we encourage and motivate, and we got to have a baseline on where to start. You don't have to jump right in and really go crazy at the beginning, right? Wouldn't it be about taking some baby steps?
Well, on the contrary, we preach start small, and even for the more conditioned firefighters, that as you're making your increases, or what we trying to create more challenges for yourself, even it's small steps. So we absolutely have to be positive and encouraging to those folks that know they want to get back into it, but maybe have that trepidation that they're a little embarrassed or, shy or whatever. And like I said, to take small steps. And the other thing that we like to tell people, it's very, very important. We've all heard the saying just in general in life that we should always be working on our weaknesses to improve them. And I tend to agree with that to a point, but I also believe on a personal level that our strengths are what get us where we are today. Our strengths are what's responsible for whatever successes we've had in our lives, in any personal issue or professional issue. And so what we like to encourage firefighters to do, especially I guess you would say the more deconditioned firefighters, is we know that everybody out there has strengths in terms of fitness. Tom's strength might be cardiovascular endurance, where Jim's strength, even though he might be deconditioned, might be that he has some decent upper body strength or whatever. Just examples to throw out there.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to encourage people to do is focus on your strengths to help get your mind back to where it needs to be. Okay? If the mind is in the right spot, our friend John Sparrow loves to say this, if your mind is prepared, the body will follow, and we all say that. So we need to prepare our mind for the battle, so to speak. And one of the best ways to do that is to focus on what strengths you know you're good at. If you're good at running or jogging or whatever, then that's where maybe you want to start and move up from there. If you're good at flexibility and maybe doing yoga or functional flexibility stuff is your thing, then that's where you want to start, and you want to work up from there, slowly adding in little things bit by bit as you improve yourself, right? And you just go from there, and you build on your successes rather than immediately focusing on what you perceive to be as your biggest weaknesses. So I think it's kind of if you can wrap your arms around that kind of a theory, I think you'll benefit yourself greatly.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I don't think a lot of people do that because they immediately focus maybe on their weakest area or what they're not good at.
Well, I think people need to generally, whether you're a firefighter or not, I think people need to give themselves more credit sometimes than they're willing to do. We all have it in us to do what's right and what's best, and we're not in and try to remember. Boy, I'm surprised Jim hasn't mentioned this yet. We're not in competition with anybody else but ourselves, right? It's one of Jim's favorite things to tell people, and he's very passionate about it. This isn't about me being better than Jim Moss or Tom Merrill or anybody else that I know. This is about me bettering myself day by day, slowly but surely. And the only person that I'm competing with is myself. So we want you to be the best you that you can be, and not worry about anybody else. We don't care about numbers on a scale. We don't care about how much pounds you can push over your head. We just want you to be better than you were a week ago. Not worry about what anybody else is doing. So you really have to be positive about this whole approach instead of feeling, like you're going to be embarrassed by people. And there's a support network out there, Tom. I mean, Jim will tell you, we're real people. We're firefighters. We wrote the book for firefighters, and we answer every email that we get. We answer every message that we get. We are here. I don't want to say 24/7. We do have to sleep. Rest and recovery is important too.
That's part of it.
But we will get back to you. If you have a question or a comment, we're always happy to help. And we're not the only resource out there. There are plenty of people out there that are willing to help, whether it's motivation, whether it's actual technical exercise questions or what have you. We do answer questions. We do respond. And it's important that folks know that, because we can't just throw something out there and say, now here, do it, and walk away. We've got to be there for people to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about the big 8 areas, but I like when I saw your presentation, I think it was in Dallas, Dan, you talked about the 4 pillars of firefighter functional fitness.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I seem to remember too. Was was it physical fitness and even some hydration and nutrition, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the 4 pillars, which is really the what we call the 4 pillars, really you can refer to as sort of the strategy that we give you to improve your functional fitness. So pillar number 1 is physical fitness. Then we move on to hydration, rest and recovery, and nutrition. So between those 4 pillars, we provide a very detailed strategy on how you're going to approach your fitness. And then things like the Big 8, the concept of the Big 8, which would fall into that pillar of physical fitness, really become your fitness tactics, so to speak. So we'll give you the strategy through the pillars, and we give you the tactics within those pillars to help improve you. Tips, tricks, here's how you do this. For each pillar, we give you detailed information, research, and give you and guide you along the way to tell you how to be better at hydration, for example, how much water you should drink, what you shouldn't drink so much of. When it comes to nutrition, which is, an incredibly controversial topic to some. It changes almost daily, but what we've tried to do is break it down into common sense approach. And we'll tell you, food is fuel. It's that's the bottom line, is that food is fuel, and the idea is for you to eat sensibly by putting the right foods in your body in the right amounts. You don't need to avoid fat completely, or avoid carbs completely, or avoid, protein completely, or you don't need to go on a full protein diet with nothing else. The reality is you need all of that stuff, but you need it in the right amounts and from the right sources. So we really try to break all that down in a strategy, so to speak, format, and then give you the path that you can follow to carry it out.
Let me ask you, Jim or Dan, whoever wants to take this, just a couple questions regarding some of these 4 pillars. Physical fitness, I know we talked a little bit about already, but let's talk about recovery and rest, especially with you two being paid firefighters, and Dan, I know you're a volunteer too, but this applies to volunteers just as well, but rest, when you're working your 24-hour shifts, or as a volunteer getting out of bed sometimes 3-4 nights a week at middle of the night, disrupting your sleep, how do we overcompensate for that? Do we take naps? Do we got to get a good 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep on our off days? What do you guys recommend for that?
Exactly. So under the pillar for recovery and rest, we break it down to passive recovery and active recovery. And so passive recovery are the things that basically don't take any strenuous or physical effort out of your body for recovery. And those 2 things under passive recovery are rest and sleep, and they are so important for firefighters. Sometimes you'll have 3 calls in the middle of the night, or you're up all hours of the night. You only get 2, 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep. Well, maybe it's not the best idea to go to the gym when you get done with your shift and work out for an hour. Maybe the best thing to do is to go home and recover from that hard night of work, which you probably got a good workout, whatever you were doing, if you're working a vehicle wreck or if you had a working fire. Maybe the best thing for you to do is actually to get home and get 3 or 4 hours of sleep if you can. And as you said, yes, should I nap? Yes, napping is good. It's okay. Try and limit those naps to around 20 to 30 minutes is what the research says, to get enough sleep in to re-energize yourself. Sleeping too much longer than that, that's what's going to disrupt you falling asleep later at night. And as you already mentioned, yes, try to get those 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of different things. But as best you can, try and get those 8 hours of sleep, because sleep is so critical for your internal hormone balance, that if you're sleep deprived over and over and over again, and you can look at military research from sleep deprivation of how that affects your mental cognition, how that affects your hormones, how that affects your physical endurance, and it just really starts to wreak havoc on every single system within your body, including your cardiovascular system. So, rest and recovery, the second pillar, is vitally important to get enough sleep and rest. Not only
so when my kids see me napping, then I can tell them I'm following your advice.
Yes, that's right. It's only part of it, but yes, you are officially following our advice, and you can blame it on us.
Dad's napping again. Here's a question that comes up from time to time on the hydration. Reading more and more, obviously, about the importance of good hydration, especially because it can affect and correct me if I'm wrong, but your cardiac health. And oftentimes firefighters are getting up and going on runs, and they're not hydrated. Heard information that, and some companies I've heard now are putting the bottled water in the crew cab, and firefighters are guzzling down water on their way to calls. And have you heard of that? Are there things we can be doing to make ourselves better hydrated and more aware of the importance of it?
Exactly. So Gavin Horn, who did a study in 2012 for training firefighters, and he measured their hydration, and 91% of the firefighters who to the train. 91% showed some level of dehydration. And as you already mentioned, dehydration definitely can, in fact, affect your cardiovascular health. So the cascade of what happens.
Hey, Jim?
Yeah.
Jim? We were losing you there for a second. Let me see. Were you moving? Or?
Here? Nope,
You're here. I can hear you good now.
All right, good.
So why don't you start? Yep, you're good now. Go ahead and start. We lost you for a second. It was breaking up. It was for me. Was it breaking up for you, Dan?
Yeah, he was starting to cut in and out, but seems like he's okay now.
Let's try that again, Jim.
Right.
I'm sorry. It just started breaking up a little bit.
I apologize. I don't know where you lost me, but, just to reiterate what you said, yes, dehydration can play a role in your cardiovascular health and especially increase your risk, your acute risk of heart attacks and strokes. So if you think about it, if your body's dehydrated, you don't have enough blood volume within your blood, right? And so if you go to start firefighting, what happens? You sweat, that fluid leaves your body, you lose vascular volume, your cardiac output decreases, and what happens to your blood? It gets thicker and thicker, and then what happens after that? You increase your chance of having blood clots and blockages, and as we all know, that's what causes our heart attacks is a lodged, blockage or blood clot within our heart, within somewhere else. And so it's a cascade effect, definitely. And maybe if you're dehydrated once at a fire, you might not have a increased risk of heart attack. But if you think about it, it affects everything about you. It's going to affect your physiological health. It's going to affect your performance on the fire ground as well. You're not going to be able to work as long and as hard. You're going to have to go to rehab quicker if you have rehab. And so, you're affecting on how well you're going to be able to put in the work, and your brothers and sisters are going to have to cover for you if you go out on heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Heat stroke can be life-threatening, so you don't want to take a chance at that. So we give firefighters the advice of, every single morning when you wake up, drink at least 2 cups or a large, maybe a little bit less than a liter of water before, having your morning coffee or having whatever, drink a large glass of water. And we also like to say, hour before bed, drink another large glass of water. Me personally, I drink water all throughout the day, and I may only have 1 or 2 cups of water, and I don't drink anything else. No soda, nothing else sugary, no energy drinks or anything like that. So water is the primary beverage, that I drink every day, maybe 1 or 2 cups of coffee. And then when it's hotter, obviously you have to drink more water during the summer months.
Right.
It's important too, Jim. We talk about, and Tom, you mentioned that they carrying the water in the crew cabs and whatnot, and I think that's an excellent idea. But the overall approach has to be what we call euhydration, or maintaining that proper hydration of your body at all times. So it's a proactive approach, because our bodies are not equipped, if we are dehydrated, to all of a sudden drink 2 or 3 liters of water and make it all go away. It just doesn't happen like that, right? We cannot absorb all that all at once. So if we're behind the 8 ball, so to speak, already, you're not going to – it's kind of like when you're really thirsty or you get dehydrated at a fire, it's too late. You're going to need IV therapy. You're going to need something more aggressive to get you back up to the right level. So the best approach is to be drinking water on a regular basis throughout the day, rather than, storing it. And I'm not saying that it's not good to have it in the apparatus, but that doesn't preclude us from having to drink on a regular basis to maintain that hydration.
Yeah, so it's important to do it consistently, ongoing,
Absolutely.
And consistently throughout the day, not just all at once. So if they're
sir.
doing that, then taking some on the way to the call is beneficial, but you may not be benefiting yourself as much as if you're just doing it the one time you're going to the call. So
exactly, and what firefighters don't realize with all that gear on, and whether it's cold month or a hot month or whatever the environmental temperature is, what happens to our heat release rate when we have all that gear on? It basically goes down to nothing, and all of that heat is stored within us. And firefighters don't know that we can lose 2 liters of sweat per hour when we're at a working fire. I mean, that's just crazy. That's more than like a hockey goalie, during a hockey match. So it's pretty crazy statistics that are out there, and that's why we say hydration or that constant state of hydration is so important all throughout your day.
Yeah, for sure. And the last one there on nutrition and lifestyle, the question comes up quite a bit about eating before a workout. What should you eat? What should you eat right after a workout? And obviously lifestyle, that's hard with just all the choices that are out there. My wife came home today from work and she had a box of chocolate. It's like someone given.
I would not say that's a good, and that is not a good pre-workout snack.
What do you recommend for if someone's a morning workout person? Is that different than if you're a late afternoon or an evening workout person? Should you eat before you work out, or should you?
It's so funny that is like the main question is like, what should I eat before a workout? What should I eat after a workout? And it's so funny because there's people who wake up at 4 a.m. and go work out, and that's the very first thing they do, and they have fasted for the previous 6 to 8 hours and not had any food, and their workout is great. And they can push themselves. And so my point being is that, we need to be placing less emphasis on what we're eating before a workout or what we're drinking before a workout and go work out. And don't get me wrong, I mean, we need to fuel our bodies. But after a workout, the window is anywhere between, there's different stats out there, but, a safe window is get good protein, good carbohydrates, and what we say by good is good quality, natural. You don't have to drink, a protein powder with 50 different ingredients that you cannot pronounce. Get those good natural proteins, good natural carbohydrates, and get them in your body within 90 minutes. And besides food, rehydrate. Hydrate before your workout, hydrate during your workout, and rehydrate with water after workout. Those things go hand in hand, not just figuring out where you're going to eat, those good proteins, those good carbs, but also getting that water replenishment within your body.
And you just said the nasty C word there, carbs, because it seems like so many people are quick to adopt the no-carb diet, which I could never do. I just love potatoes and pasta, and I always thought I was eating a healthy snack because my whole life I've eaten pretzels, and then I found out too many carbs. So your take is almost you guys are almost of the everything in moderation approach, aren't you?
Yeah, and more importantly, it's about focusing on the right nutrients, the right amounts, and for the right performance of your body. And it's not about restricting yourself per se. And everybody's metabolism's different. Everybody's at a different stage within their fitness and their life. I can't recommend the same thing for someone who has, type 2 diabetes as someone who is in very good physical health. They're going to have different requirements, macronutrient requirements, carbs, proteins and fiber and all that stuff for their body. So you can't say one thing across the board. But one thing we really emphasize to everybody is, and we got to say, we're not registered dietitians, so we can't, provide meal plans for anyone or anything like that. It's not within our scope of practice. But one thing we just generally say is, get rid of the ultra-processed foods. Get rid of those foods that, are high in refined carbohydrates. And if you can do anything to better improve your nutrition and the beverages you drink, just stop drinking and eating so much sugar. I mean, there's just so much wrong with a high intake of sugar, leading to type 2 diabetes, leading to obesity, and so many other different things. And it's something, sugar is something that, it's addictive. It stimulates the same brain receptors, all that dopamine and serotonin and all that stuff within your brain that makes it addictive. And there's a study out there that says sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And I'll just drop that bomb right there, which is crazy because it stimulates your brain 8 times more addictive, and that's just really eye-opening for everybody.
And it's not easy to find foods low in sugar. I've been a cereal eater for breakfast my whole life pretty much, and I'm talking what I thought was healthy cereal. I was a Cheerios guy.
Right.
I was a Wheaties guy. And it was my doctor that pointed out when I started putting a little weight on in my belly that get rid of the sugar. What do you eat? And I told her, and she was like, look at the sugar count. And I never realized. It's hard to eat a sugar. But it's hard.
Yeah.
Like I'm also a yogurt
labels.
guy for lunch, but even yogurt's loaded with sugar. It's so hard.
Exactly.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
You
and,
have to read
you know,
the labels, right?
Yeah.
And you got to know that if they take something out to keep it tasting good, they're going to probably put something else in that's just as bad for you. So, if it says fat-free, why does it taste so good?
Can't they make a potato chip that's really good for you? We can put people in space. Can't we do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you said, there's so much sugar in everything. There's 600,000 food products for sale in America, and 80% of those have added sugar that don't even need to be there. And so that's why we tell people, try and look at the labels, see how much sugar, see how many grams of sugar is in the food that you're eating, and just try and minimize it. I love to tell the story that I used to drink 2 sodas a day. And then I weaned myself down to 1 soda a day. And then I went to diet, and then it was 1 soda every 2 to 3 days. And then eventually after that, I stopped drinking soda completely. And you know what I noticed? I probably lost like 10 pounds, within, 3 months just from stopping drinking a soda. And there's another guy I know who said he lost 15 to 20 pounds over a year from just cutting out soda. So no soda.
He did, Tom. He did that because I told him I don't drink soda.
That inspired me.
I haven't had a soda in years.
Positive peer pressure.
It's the easiest.
That's
the easiest way to get rid of 5 pounds just in about a week or two. If you're looking to lose that magic number of 5 pounds, just stop drinking soda. It'll go away. I promise.
Yeah. You know what else I used to drink a lot of? Not a lot of, but once a day. I was an orange juice guy. Again,
right?
Sugar.
Vitamin C. I'm old enough to remember the ads from the '70s with Bing Crosby selling orange juice. It's healthy, but holy smokes, I had to cut that out. It's hard to find good nutritional food. When you're shopping at the grocery store and I guess you can get good at it after time, but when you're out there spending an hour in the grocery store loading up your cart to feed your family, it's a challenge to really find food.
As long as you're shopping on the perimeter of the grocery store, you have a better chance of doing it right. Right? The good stuff is typically going to be found around the outside, the big square. Once you start getting down those middle aisles, they're sucking you in with all the processed stuff and all that. So
cookies and crackers,
a little tip we like to give. Yeah.
And
stay to
folks,
the outside. Stay to the perimeter.
For all the volunteers out there, just as a reminder to the volunteers that are listening in, not a bad idea to maybe go out and try and find a nutritionalist in your town, someone that can help discuss this with your membership, bring them in on a drill or a meeting night to talk about it. Maybe it's something that could be worked in with a fund drive as part of their donation, their community donation to the volunteer firehouse. You can get somebody come in, a drill or training night to talk about this that maybe could help you prepare some post-drill meals to start getting the focus on this and help you along. It's not a bad idea. Like I said, we did have a nutritionalist come in once to our training drill to talk to us about it. Sometimes they'll be more than happy to do it for free of charge. And again, if they're community-minded, it could be their fund drive donation to your company. And again, just as a reminder to everybody, this is the Professional Volunteer Fire Department on Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio. And it's been just an absolutely fantastic conversation with my guests here tonight, Dan Kerrigan and Jim Moss. And if anyone has any questions for them, you still have time. You can call us at 760-454-8852. I'm sure they would love to hear from you if you have some questions for them, or if you have any questions for me, please feel free to give us a call, because you know what, again, whether career or volunteer, the risks we face are the same. One of those risks is not being as physically fit as we should be and not taking fitness as seriously as we should. And hopefully we've given you some really good information tonight. And there's still time for people to call in if they have any questions. And one question I have is the importance of rehab at our fires. It used to be you'd go out, put an air pack on, go right back in. Go out, get another air pack, go right back in. And back in our day, I shouldn't say that because I'm still doing it. I mean firefighting, but back in the days of my beginning in the career in the 80s, we might have guzzled a Pepsi or a Coke before going back in. That's
I remember that. And had a cigarette.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, our chief back in the day would be smoking a cigar and walking around in the smoke, and that's just how it was. And it looks glamorous, but we know now it wasn't. But important to have rehab set up, isn't it, guys?
Absolutely. I mean, NFPA has a great standard out there, 1584, that has been proven to be effective. And I would encourage any fire chief, any training officer, any medical officer, if you have a rehab person, to go ahead and get a copy of that and get up to speed with that. Because, look, we've talked for an hour now about all of the different things that come into play that affect your body when it comes to strenuous firefighting. And you absolutely have to give your body time to recover and recuperate a little bit before you get back at it. Whether it's hydration, whether it's reducing your core temperature, reducing your heart rate, all of that stuff comes together, and that's the prime reason why one of the prime reasons why we have rehab. So that those folks that are running that rehab sector can evaluate you, see where you are now, and in 5 or 10 minutes, see how you've recovered or if you haven't. And treat you accordingly. We're only doing more harm to our bodies. I mean, we talk how long about how high your heart rate goes and all the different things that affect you physiologically when we fight fire. We're putting more and more pressure on ourselves, so that firefighting, that trigger for a sudden cardiac event is going to remain there as long as you keep that heart rate up and keep pushing yourself beyond what a normal capacity would be, I should say. So, yeah, absolutely. I know none of us want to. We usually ran from rehab or hid. We used to hide inside the building that was on fire to avoid rehab, right? Or yell at people out the window. No, I'm good, But honestly, it's not the right way to do it. You got to get in there, get cooled off, get rehydrated, get your vitals taken and evaluated, and go from there, and hopefully you can get back into the battle a lot quicker and with more recovery, as a result.
Right, and we need to remember that, firefighter rehabilitation isn't only for, working fires. It's also for long standbys. It's also for hands-on drills, hands-on training. And so that's I'm glad you brought it up, because that's one of the things that we talk about within our hydration pillar. We talk about the PRP method. So the first P being prepared, so always drinking water and taking that proactive approach. Secondly is rehabilitation, and last week we talked about purging of cancer, toxins and carcinogens. But going back to rehab, is the fact that it has to be an integral part of your hydration and your rest and your recovery. As Dan already mentioned, NFPA 1584 is the standard. If you just Google it, there's tons of resources online. I have a good article on firefightertoolbox.com that breaks down firefighter rehabilitation very simply and very straightforward. But one of the things we really want to encourage firefighters is to, especially in the age of, we're becoming more aware of the carcinogens on our gear. So one of the two things that we want to do is to rehydrate and reduce hypothermia. And the easy way to do that and to get these carcinogens away from our body is to doff, all of our gear when we go to rehab. And so not just the turnout coat, because a lot of times we just take the turnout coat, our helmet off, and maybe our hood off, and then we still leave our bunker pants and our boots on. But you need to take off all that so you get down to your shirt and your pants or whatever you're wearing underneath your turnout gear, and let that. Hopefully, you have a dedicated whether EMTs or EMS unit there. Hopefully, you have somebody there, or even a firefighter that can take your vital signs. Your blood pressure. If you have a pulse oximeter, take your pulse ox reading. To also take your other vital signs like your temperature. If you're advanced enough to take your carbon monoxide level, and also I can't remember everything. Maybe your pulse as well. But to give yourself 10 to 15 minutes of rest in the rehab sector, and to take that time to rehydrate, and also get some more fuel with some healthy carbohydrates while you're in rehab. So it's definitely something, I'm glad you brought it up, that it's just so important for firefighters, and it's been proven to reduce injuries, proven to reduce exhaustion and stress and overexertion for firefighters. And as firefighters, we need to basically have the attitude of not being too proud to go to rehab. We encourage more firefighters to go to rehab, especially after that first battle or strenuous work. 30 minutes of strenuous work, even if you're not breathing on air. Go to rehab and get that energy back, get that replenishment.
Yeah, and a challenge we have in our area, and Dan, probably in the Pennsylvania area too, is in the wintertime is taking your gear off, and now you're exposed to the elements and the cold.
Right.
And it's not always easy to find a place to do that, and but it's something to plan ahead for. Actually, it adds another thing we should be ready for.
Work in extremes, right? So it's not only the cold, but also the extreme heat too. I mean, there's a lot of in my area, there are several fire departments that have taken it, to the level where they are actually designated rehab companies that are prepared for all of that and come out with all of the equipment, the misting fans, the tents, the warm weather stuff, portable heaters. They have all that, and they'll come out on a box alarm or a working fire and provide that for you. It's actually gotten to that level now where it's that serious where, we're dealing with not just the fire itself or the incident itself, but the environmental conditions around us too. They're just going to compound all that. So it's all very, very important.
I just learned something this weekend. I mentioned earlier I was in Virginia at the Virginia Fire Rescue Conference, and just a wonderful, wonderful group of firefighters down there, both career and volunteer. And I got an email yesterday from somebody I had met while at the conference. We didn't have a lot of time to talk after my class, so he sent me an email, and he's a retired firefighter, and he's also a volunteer. He has put, or is in the process of putting, a unit together specifically for rehab. It's a volunteer unit consisting, isn't it? And it consists mostly of retired firefighters, but also other people who want to volunteer, and they're going to have all the equipment, tools, and necessary accessories to properly put together a rehab unit and respond in their area in Virginia to incidents that require rehab. And I thought, wow, that is a great idea, because a lot of frontline firefighters and a lot of fire departments are strapped for manpower and equipment, and rehab might be one of the first things to be overlooked or ignored when the budget chopping comes, or when you need extra people. They may not be there to do rehab.
Exactly. And if I could, while you were talking, while we were all talking about this, I just Googled really quickly NFPA 1584, and under the work to rest ratio, here's some quick, simple tips for firefighters. So if you do a 30-minute SCBA, you go through that cylinder, or if you have 20 minutes of intense work without an SCBA, you should have 10 minutes of self-rest, self-rehabilitation with hydration. If you go through two 30-minute cylinders or one 45/60-minute cylinder, you should go to an actual rehab area where they take your vital signs and everything, and have at least 20 minutes of rest with rehydration. So there you go.
There it is. You show that to the city fathers, where you guys would have to answer to the governor or the mayors and that when it comes to cutting, right? Hey, but that is important. That is weird. Hey, someone just dinged in with a question on my account here, and it actually applies to me too. Real quick, if you don't mind, I hope you don't mind that we're still going. This has just been such great information.
Somebody's
inquiring, my paid job, I'm a fire dispatcher. I work at the fire alarm office. We're fortunate to have a central fire alarm office that dispatches fire and medical only. It's separate from the police, and that's a topic for another day. But things you can do as a volunteer that works 8, 9, 10, 12 hours at a job where you are in an office. So you're not maybe working at a job where you're using a lot of physical skills and maybe being able to get some exercise in. Are there little breaks we can take while sitting at our desk or in the office environment that can help us functional fitness-wise? Are there things we can be doing?
Exactly. Well, you have a body with you, so you have your own body, so you can always do body weight exercises. You can always do stretches. And, the number of body weight exercises you can do is unending. You just have to come up with your own creativity. And if you go Google the periodic table of body weight exercises, there's like 100 body weight exercises you can do. But, just getting back to answering that question, I would say every 30 minutes at least. If you could do it every 15 minutes, that would be great, because the longer that you sit, the more your muscles are going to tighten up, especially in your hips, your back, your lower back. But every 30 minutes or every hour, try and get, 20 push-ups in or 20 air squats in. You could do chair dips to where like tricep dips from a chair. If you can do jumping jacks, you may look a little silly around your coworkers. That's okay. But it really comes down to your mentality, right? You're only limited by your own creativity and your willingness to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could just see my boss looking at me as I'm doing jumping jacks. But no, in all seriousness, that's true though. There is a lot you can do in an office environment. There's no reason you can't do 20 push-ups. As you get up from your desk. And
and maybe the more popular thing now is the standing desk. So a desk that you can either sit at or you can stand up at. So maybe 30 minutes if you're sitting all day long. 30 minutes you're sitting at that desk, and then you can adjust it to where you're standing the next 30 minutes after that. That way you're up, you're moving.
They are finding, right, it's better to stand. Aren't they finding that today now, that sitting is worse than standing, right?
Exactly. Sitting for prolonged periods of time usually causes more back pain than any type of physical activity would. So, being sedentary is, definitely, sitting too long is going to cause more hip pain and tightness and lower back tightness and pain than anything else.
And I'll tell you what else you can do. If you're sitting in an office, or in my case, sitting at a fire dispatch council, you can make sure that you are doing one of the 4 pillars correctly, right? You can be exercising to good nutrition and hydration. You can be making sure you're drinking water instead of soda.
That's right.
And
exactly.
Trying to eat healthy. So
1 hour you could get your physical fitness in, with your air squats and your push-ups. The next hour you could focus on resting and recovering. The next hour after that you can get your hydration in, maybe get 2 cups or 3 cups of water in. And then lastly, it's lunchtime. You better focus on your nutrition and make sure you have good nutrition during your lunchtime.
There you go. And I had another question bounced in here. I guess people are afraid to call in. They'd rather send me questions. That's fine. That's no problem. Female saying that sometimes they get intimidated. And I can sympathize with this because I'm on the shorter side. Sure. So I'm not a big, brawny, strong guy. But sometimes females are intimidated. But again, I think what we're after here is encouraging people to be accepting of everybody and to work, if you're doing it in groups and in your firehouses, to work with everybody. It's not about who's the strongest, who's the fastest. It's becoming a team and motivating each other and working together.
Exactly.
And I'll just reiterate that you're not in competition with anybody but yourself.
Yep,
there's
there you go.
No reason to be that you are your only competition, and there's no reason to be ashamed of anything. If you are up and in the gym or out moving around and exercising, then you're doing a lot more than a lot of people are to begin with that are sitting on the couch watching TV with a bag of potato chips. So there's nothing to be ashamed of It's all about you doing what's best for you, male or female. It doesn't matter. You do what's best for you, and you set your own personal goals and take your small steps, and the only person you're competing with is yourself. It doesn't really matter what anybody else is doing.
Yeah,
exactly.
So true.
And we'll be honest in saying that there are a lot of females that really identify with our program and our methodology. Because it gets away from the idea of, like I said before, you're a guy, you have to bench press, or, everybody has to press, or use specific weight machines, or lift a lot of weight. Being strong as a firefighter is very important. But as we said, with all the Big 8 concept, there's so much more. You have to have a comprehensive approach. It's not just about lifting weights or trying to bench press 300 pounds. Integrating your core, getting better with your cardiovascular capacity, with your flexibility, and then actually performing functional movements that are replicated from the fireground for pushing, pulling, lifting, carrying, and dragging. When we break down firefighter fitness in those terms and make it that simple, a lot of people jump on board, especially females, because they say, oh, good, it's not just about lifting weights.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what else it does? With everything you're talking about, is functionally and practically going to make you so much better on the fire ground, because, as you said, so many of the things you're doing apply directly to what we do on the fire ground. So overall, you're going to become not just a more fit person, but a better firefighter, which is fantastic. And guys, I'll tell you, I think the time has come here now where I want you to talk to me just quickly about the book and how people can get the book, because I know it is loaded with so much information and covers everything we talked about tonight and more. But also, for anybody listening who's fortunate enough to be going to FDIC, tell them about your class that they can come to.
Awesome. Yeah, so sure, our book, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead, Dan. Our book is called Firefighter Functional Fitness. You can get it at firefighters-paid.com. We're proud to say that it's like 20 countries now worldwide. We've gotten great 5-star reviews from it, and a lot of people saying, hey, why wasn't this written years ago? And we're kind of along the same lines. Yeah, why didn't someone come out with this years ago? Because it's so simple and practical for firefighters and their fitness. We have 22 different chapters. It's a comprehensive approach, and it really breaks down fitness for firefighters to making it functional, practical, and simple for the job. As for FDIC, we are going to be team teaching, and Dan's scheduled class is on Wednesday of that week at 1:30 p.m. My class next day is going to be at 10:30 on Thursday. Dan's class is the 4 pillars of firefighter functional fitness. My class is the Big 8 of firefighter functional fitness. I think I covered everything. Dan, if you want to tell them about our social media, because we're very active on social media.
Absolutely. I will also add, Tom, just for anybody that's listening, especially those volunteers that are out there, that I also want to mention that Jim this year is going to be at the National Volunteer Fire Council Summit in Myrtle Beach in June.
I'll see you there, Jim.
I will be.
All right.
So you'll meet Jim this year.
I will be there.
We're doing something a little bit different that I want to mention as well, but I'll get to that in a sec. And I'll be out in Reno in May at the VCOS West Symposium as well. So we've got some other opportunities out there for you as well, and we're always available. If you contact us via email, we're always available to come out to your department to do something for you if you're looking for a program from us.
Yes, make sure you pass on your contact info.
So to get a hold of us, absolutely, you can reach us through the website that Jim mentioned. We're on Twitter at Firefighter at FF. What is it, Jim? At Firefighter FFit. Twitter,
you got
is
it, at Firefighter FFit.
Same thing with Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and you can get that at Firefighter FFit. We're also on Instagram at Firefighter Functional Fitness, and you can always email us. Probably the easiest way to do it is the email address is f3@firefightertoolbox.com, and our personal emails are Dan Kerrigan 911 and Jim Moss 911, both at gmail.com. So many ways to get a hold of us. via social media. We're always out there putting out tips and videos and that sort of thing. And lastly, I would just offer that if you go to our website, we would also like you to that we have a free special report called The 10 Biggest Mistakes Firefighters Make, and that's free for you to download. There's no cost to it. And Tom, you mentioned earlier about drill topics and whatnot, especially your volunteers. I can guarantee you, by downloading that one report, you will have at least 10, if not more, drill session topics to talk about to start to bring that fitness culture into your fire stations, just by simply downloading that report and creating content from it itself. So that's a free report that we offer anybody. They just go to our website and download it.
Oh, fantastic, guys. I really appreciate your time here tonight. And I know it was a quick hour and a half. We covered a lot. Is there any major points that maybe we didn't get to that you can think of that you just want to mention, or one thing that you want to reaffirm with the listeners before we say goodbye?
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to thank you for saying is that, your physical fitness and wellness is so much more than working out and going to a gym and exercising. As you mentioned before, yes, your physical fitness is important, and how you work out is important. It needs to be functional, but also your rest and recovery, your hydration, and your nutrition are equally, if not more important, because everything is related and everything works together to make you a more fit, a more functionally fit firefighter.
And I would just add that again, thank you for having us. It's always a pleasure, and it's an honor for us to be on to be able to talk like this with you guys. But I would really just encourage everybody just to take that step, take a small step, and get going and doing something to better yourself. We're all here to support you. It's important for Jim and myself and a lot of people in the fire service that we reduce these numbers of line of duty deaths across the board, but in particular because of health related issues. And all we would like you to do is just give it a chance and take one step, do something small today or tomorrow to improve yourself in one of those areas, and take on that success and move forward with it, and just continue the positive thoughts and get yourself in a better place.
That's fantastic, guys. Again, thank you so very much. And listeners out there, do yourself a favor, check out their good stuff, their book, check out their social media page, their Facebook page, and their videos, and you're going to just become so much better informed and get so many great tips on how you can help yourself, which, again, ultimately benefits your community, your fellow firefighters, and you're benefiting your family, too. As Chief Goldfeder says, think of who's in your wallet. You want to come home to them, and
that's right.
Do it for them, too. So, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate this great information. And I look forward to talking with you more and seeing you more down the road at different conventions and meetings. And I just appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Really appreciate it.
Okay, guys, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Good night.
Take care and stay safe. Well, there you have it, folks. Just a wonderful show this evening with two iconic firefighters and physical fitness professionals and professional firefighters, too. Just great information there for everybody to think about, to investigate, and hopefully take some steps necessary to improve your fitness, to improve your lifestyle. Just that one stat alone that they mentioned to me, I keep looking at it because I knew some of the stats. This one was new to me, and I'm definitely going to work it into my presentation as a reminder that the 25-to-1, for every firefighter fatality due to a sudden cardiac event, 25 others suffer life-altering cardiac events. So if that doesn't cause you to be a champion of firefighter fitness, I don't know what will. And, it's a personal choice, but it does have professional implications. Another great line that fits in nicely with our show here, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. And I want to thank you for listening. And again, remember, FDIC is coming up in April, and hopefully you can make it out to Indianapolis there between April 24th and 29th, and if so, attend Jim and Dan's classes on Wednesday and Thursday. If you get a chance and come out early enough, maybe you can make my 4-hour class. We'll certainly cover physical fitness as one of what I call my building blocks for building a professional foundation. Again, as a reminder, if you get a chance, check out the Battalion TV, the internet-based reality show that follows fire departments around on not just my little department, Snyder, but some bigger departments too on the East Coast, West Coast, all over. It's pretty cool. They'll be following us around Indianapolis again this year at FDIC. And speaking of FDIC, my next show is scheduled for FDIC. It'll be Friday, April 28th. I'll actually be teaming up with Chris Willis, who, as you know, hosts a fire engineering show, Small Town Tactics. We're going to combine our shows at FDIC, and we're going to discuss issues and challenges faced by the volunteer fire service. And we're also going to talk about the future of the volunteer fire service. So I'm looking forward to that, looking forward to co-hosting with Chris at FDIC on Friday, April 28th. Again, feel free to contact me if you have anything for me, if you want to tell me about some of your challenges, some of your things that you're doing that are nothing less than professional, stories that you want to share. My email is tamerrill, the number 63 at AOL.com. I am also on Twitter, Tom Merrill. I have a Facebook page, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. Please give it a look, give it a like. Send me messages, share articles and stories with me, and I'll share them with the large volunteer fire community that's out there. But thank you for tuning in tonight, people. I really appreciate it. It was a great show with a lot of great information. Please, please remember that being fit for duty is the most basic requirement for every firefighter, both career and volunteer. And along with that, please remember that developing, maintaining, and upholding a professional reputation is the duty and responsibility of all firefighters, paid or volunteer. Thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you again from FDIC. Reach out to me and stay safe, everybody. God bless.